Most of us want to climb harder things, and that often requires that we can do harder moves. But sometimes it just means doing more moves or more complex moves, which is why I recently dropped a video that roughly outlines 3 sessions that, when cycled through, are probably the simplest effective way to structure your training for climbing. Go hard, do more, and explore. And in that video, I kept the advice really simple because, well, simple was the entire goal. But I know that some people want a little more detail and understanding of how to take the next step to make those sessions more robust. So in the next couple of videos, we'll go through each session and talk specifics. I'm Chris Hampton, this is the Power Company Climbing Academy, and today in this video, we're talking about the best ways to structure a go hard bouldering session. Let's go. So the idea of this session is simply to try hard, to give an intensive effort at something difficult for you. Now this can mean a lot of things. Some moves are harder physically, some are harder technically, and some are harder mentally. It's all fair game because that's literally how all climbing works. And hard is hard. Even if it's mostly a technical challenge, it's unlikely that your body is relaxed like it's warm-up level. You're probably still trying fairly hard physically, and over time, doing enough variety of moves and climbs, it's going to all even out. And you'll get better at all types of effort, not just physical effort. God. Now, if you already know that intensive effort, that single move, try as hard as possible, making baby elephant noises type of effort is really difficult for you, then I've made a 1-hour video series called the Try Harder Toolkit that dives into the science of effort and explores how to access it on demand and how to manage it effectively. It's totally free. The link is in the description. Now, this session can be done on a rope, but it's best done on boulders. If you insist on doing it on a rope, I'd go with very short, very hard routes, top ropes even, because we want to string together hard moves instead of worrying about clipping or weird lead falls. And you'll probably need a patient belayer who's willing to let you spend a while working out moves. But like I said, much more effective and more efficient on boulders, even if your goals are to do long routes. Now, let's look at the session itself. First, warming up. Personally, I always like a little off-the-wall warm-up, but it's not an absolute necessity. In fact, if you have a short warm-up that you love that does the job for you, then do it. After about 5 minutes getting moving off the wall, I'm ready to start climbing on easy things. I usually use the first 5 minutes or so of climbing to check in with how I feel, getting into positions that I'm likely to encounter in the session. I'm on easy terrain, checking in on my hips, knees, shoulders, and wrists, grabbing a variety of grips, heel hooking, drop kneeing, etc. Then I start working into different styles, doing warm-ups, slow and filled with constant tension, as well as more explosive with a faster rhythm and a constant tension release cycle. And if you're someone who finds that focusing on specific sort of movement drills help you, now is the time to do that once you're feeling ready to try some moderate climbing. And now, the Try Harder Toolkit that I mentioned earlier is actually a free spinoff of a movement assessment tool that I built called the Atomic Elements of Climbing Movement. And I'm always using the results of my evaluation to help guide me in what movement drills I'm going to be working on. And going through my evaluation based on what my goals are right now, I've filled out my polar chart and it's told me that tension and rhythm are the 2 things that I could be focusing on to get the most bang for my buck. So what I do in that case is I go and I look at my included drill matrix here, which tells me what drills are going to fit those elements. And I can see that the dead stop is going to be really helpful for me, as well as the sloth monkey, which was the drill, the contrasting tension that I started this with. And I'm also going to be bringing a little bit of rhythm into the next part of this session. And you'll see that in just a minute. But let's look at the dead stop. So starting on a moderate climb and increasing the difficulty from there, I spend 10 or 15 minutes exploring this dead stop drill, trying to create a ton of tension at the top of an explosive move, enough to slow the move down a little and hit the target hold precisely. And I'm purposely moving this into a difficulty level that's a little too much. I can't quite slow the move down effectively at the top. This way, I know where my current limits are, and as I keep exploring over time, I can better judge my progress. And keep in mind here, dead stops may not be the right drill for you. If you want to know what is right for you, you can learn more about the atomic elements of climbing movement at the link in the description. Now, after this higher level drill, I feel ready to actually try hard. And here is where, if I were going to add it, I'd do any specific finger work, especially high intensity finger work. And today, it's going to be a few heavy hangs, followed by a short rest, and then an explosive campus sequence. Now, a couple of things you might want to keep in mind here for the exercises that you're putting into this slot, which is supplemental, is that number one, this type of complex training might not be right for you. It might just be some one-arm hangs. It might be heavy finger lifts. Could be all sorts of things. Number two is that I'm doing only 3 total sets of this, 3 hangs, 3 of these campus sequences leading with each hand, so 6 of those total. And I'm resting for as long as I need in between reps because this is a go hard session and I want to keep this as high quality and high intensity as possible. The way we do that is to rest more in between reps. And for me, this is partly about getting my fingers recruited, yes, but it's also about making sure that my commitment to latching small holds, especially when I'm having to jump to latch the small hold, the commitment and the timing are both firing together and at a really high level. And I think the campus board is perfect for that. And frankly, I think the campus board is one of the most underutilized, undervalued tools there is. And that's a whole different video. If that's something you're interested in, let me know in the comments and maybe I'll put something together. I'm not trying to get tired because I don't want to negatively affect the climbing that I'm going to be doing. But this is a short portion of the session that I can slowly progress over time. Add weight to my lift, distance to or reduce the rung size of my campusing, or any other sort of measurable progression. And again, this is optional, it's supplemental, especially if you're a fairly new climber topping out at say V4 or V5 or 12A or B, it's likely that you can still progress for a long time without doing any of this supplemental work. And it is supplemental. Your climbing training should be mostly climbing. Now, I rest a few minutes after I'm finished campusing, and then I'm ready to try hard on boulders. And this is where it can take so many different forms. You can and should switch it up depending on your goals. For instance, a hard flash attempt isn't likely to be the absolute hardest moves you can do, but you're also likely to give just as much to it since you don't have the opportunity to dial it in beforehand. And if you have a climbing trip planned where you want to try to do a lot of things quickly, then this type of training, trying flashes, is going to pair with that goal really well. So always keep the goal in mind and adjust your training based on that. The only real rule here is that because this is a go hard session, we want our main focus to be giving high intensive effort. That's it. Most of the time, this is going to take one of these 4 forms. Number 1, hard flash or onside attempts. Hard being the key word here. If you're succeeding more often than 50% of the time, you're aiming too low. And if you never succeed, it might be helpful to back off of the difficulty a bit. The goal here is to gather as much information as you can, do your best to execute, and then run a post-mortem to try to discern what you did well and what didn't go so well. Did your expectations get in the way? Were you too rigid with the beta? Or did that slight adjustment you made on the fly make all the difference? It's this sort of feedback that's the really important part. Number 2, high pressure sends that have a time or attempt limit. A couple that we use often in our programs are, first, 3-strike boulders, where you get 3 attempts at either something new or something really hard that you'd like to repeat, or a a 10-minute takedown, where you choose a hard boulder and try to learn enough in 10 minutes to give it 1 or 2 high-quality send attempts. And then send or not, ask yourself why. This kind of pressure will reward you for trying harder when in normal circumstances you just iron it out over a few more attempts, and it can be really valuable to practice before a climbing trip. Number 3, short-term projects that are going to take about 3 to 5 sessions or so to get done. Now, efficient tactics really come into play here. The goal should be to send as quickly as possible. If it only takes a few tries, what caused you to shoot too low? If it ends up not getting done in 3 to 5 sessions, why? These are important questions. Number 4, long-term projects that may or may not ever get done, but do force you to try really hard because there's still a possibility that you might do it. That possibility is important and is going to look different to every climber. Some people can see the possibility even when it's months or years out. Others can't see past the current session. And the important thing is that you constantly and honestly reassess and adjust your beliefs. Really hard climbing depends on that belief. Now, for our purposes, you can mix up these 4 methods of giving intense efforts however best fits your scenario over time. If you're more psyched on projects, spend your sessions doing that. If you get motivated to have more variety or have a trip planned, spend a few weeks focused on high-pressure sends or flash attempts. Trying them all of these methods over time is going to be your best approach. And now, climbing is complicated. So there are going to be sessions where you just don't nail it. You'll have to constantly adjust. And there's some common scenarios that can throw things off. Let's look at a few of those and the adjustments that you can make to continue getting the most out of this. First is that things are just too easy. Like I mentioned with the flashes, if you're sending a lot every session, then you're probably undershooting. Bump up the difficulty a little. And that doesn't mean just grades. You can change style, and as long as you're still giving a high effort, then it still fits your goal, even when that effort is in a style that you're unfamiliar with or aren't as familiar with. And that leads to maybe the most common problem. You can't quite do it, but you also aren't really getting to try very hard. A project might have a strange move or two that you aren't even sure how to do. You might not even be able to establish enough to try hard. So it can seem like a waste of time when the goal of the session is intensive effort. Now, when this happens, I'd apply what our coach Nate Drolet calls the 7-try rule. Give 7 honest efforts, and if you make any progress, however small, keep going. Pretty soon, if you keep making small bits of progress, I'd guess you're figuring out how to try harder. If you don't make progress in those 7 tries, then maybe this move would be better on an explore day, or maybe you can leave it for some time later when you feel like you've improved. The 7-try rule is also great for when things actually get too hard for you. When that happens, you feel like you've given real effort but got nowhere in those 7 tries. And I mean nowhere, because even just creating a little movement from a position that you could barely hold is progress. Then just move on for now. If it's on a board or outside, which are the best places for long-term projects, then you can always revisit it later to see if you've improved and if you can get closer. Now, finally, the last roadblock I see is that you've come in a little tired and aren't really giving the highest effort you'd be capable of in perfect circumstances. And this one can be tough because some of us just have lives that are more tiring and there's no way around that. But the goal is to give what you have available. And if you aren't regularly going to have more than that available, that's fine. Work with it. When you do get those moments of being 100% rested, it'll go that much better. However, if you're the type of climber who just can't find the value in rest days and you keep choosing to come into this session pretty fatigued, then it's your choices that are the problem. And I'd recommend taking a month or 2 to test what it's like to come into these high intensity sessions feeling more rested. I suspect that it'll be eye-opening what you're actually capable of. Now, I'm sure there are other questions that are going to arise, so please feel free to drop those in the comments and let's talk about it. But overall, remember that the most important thing is that we want to keep these sessions simple enough that we'll show up and get them done. mean, you might be 1 or 2% less effective on those sessions that don't quite hit the mark, but you're 100% less effective if you don't show up at all. So keep it simple and resist the urge to complicate it until the simple version just doesn't seem to be working anymore. All right, I'll be back soon to discuss more details about the second of our 3 sessions. Do more. See you then.